Welcome to another Winged Victory podcast. I'm your host, Robert Gale. My co-host, Scott Clare's here. We have two very special guests this episode. We have Johnny Drury.
Well, Rob.
And Ashby Taylor.
Wait.
Because today we're going to be talking about a no-kidding Winged Victory. We're going to be talking about flying in combat. The World War II combat guys are just about all gone. And as you can see, even the Vietnam guys are a little bit seasoned. But both of these gentlemen know what it's like to strap into an airplane and go off and go to war for real. So I really appreciate you guys being willing to talk to us about this. And I know, Ashby, you're an academy graduate.
Yep, 1970 graduate.
And through flight school and into Vietnam.
That's correct. That was my first assignment. So pilot training lasted a year, and then I checked out in the F4 for about 4 months, and then straight to Vietnam. So when I got to Vietnam, I was a brand new first lieutenant with about 450 flying hours. I didn't know anything.
That's how they get you guys to do that.
That's typical, yeah.
And Johnny, you were a little earlier, but also not an academy product.
No, I came out of Texas A&M, class of 68. And I guess even starting in high school, I couldn't wait to get over there and get some experience, hoping I'd be a pilot by then. So fortunately or unfortunately, I did make it over there my first assignment out of pilot training.
And so Ashby was checked out in the Phantom. Did you train in the Bronco or?
I did. After pilot training, I got sent directly to Harbor Field, Florida. We spent a few months checking out the OV-10 Bronco, and then immediately overseas.
I'm sure William will post a photo of the OV-10, but it's one of the coolest looking airplanes.
It was a fun airplane.
Since the Lightning, there's still in service here and there. Twin turboprops, twin booms. That's not to say the Phantom isn't a cool airplane either. It's very cool.
It looks good, at least. I tell you, it was very powerful. Handling qualities at time of attack were less than optimal, but it had a lot of power.
Well, it's said that, like most wars, we went to war in Vietnam completely ill-equipped for the war we were going to fight, except, I think, for the OV-10. I think that airplane was exactly what was needed.
It came out in the late 60s. Vietnam had already started, and was an excellent tool for what we were flying.
So how were you flying that then? What were your issues when you're flying the OV-10?
Oh gosh, they were varied. Just like each airplane we flew over there, whoever flew over there, each mission was different. The OV-10 was used in Cambodia starting in 1970 when we went in there under the direction of Nixon. And my typical mission was taking off at first out of Ben Hoa, Vietnam, and we were directly into Cambodia every day to help out the ground commanders, often helping them defend off the North Vietnamese and the Viet Cong. Many times we bore missions like flying cover for our ocean-going ship going up the Mekong River to Phnom Penh, just flying circles in the sky.
So what constitutes a boring mission? Just not getting shot at?
Well, a typical mission flying cover for those ships was flying circles at about 1,500 feet above them, just waiting for them to be attacked from the shores, from ground fire. And so we'd take along our lunches and just sit there and eat a sandwich during the 3 or 4 hours we were flying circles. I'd give the aircraft my backseater, which were enlisted observers, and tell you more about those later. I told Lunchbox was one of my backseaters. I told Lunchbox, so you got the airplane. I'd put my feet up on the glare shield and read Stars and Stripes to see blue circles around the ships. That was a boring mission. Then occasionally it was interrupted by sheer excitement when they did receive ground fire. They'd put down lower and start putting in air strikes and all.
You have to take your feet off the.
Yeah,
I'd take your feet on the pedals.
That's right.
You got the plane.
But many times we were out there doing boring fact-finding missions when the ground commander would call us up. One of our major ground commanders was Colonel Uma, a Cambodian ground commander. His call sign was Coachella 101. And his radio operator would be screaming at us to come help. And we would try to assess the situation, order fighters from our headquarters in Saigon, and hopefully we'd get fighters. Sometimes we got F-4s, sometimes the F-100s, sometimes the AC-119s or C-130 gunships. But most often, and the ones we liked the best, was this airplane behind us, the A-37. These guys come in low and slow. Nothing against F-4s. But they can come in right on the treetops. A lot of the F-4s we got were leftovers from the trail up in Laos when the weather was too bad. And those guys were dropping several thousand feet. And some of those 500-pounders would go somewhere other than intended spots.
Except both of you, now that you've mentioned the A-37, both of you had at least one combat sortie in the airplane.
I've got one in the right seat, yeah.
And Ashby, yours was providentially scheduled?
Well, yeah, I was, we used to fly missions out of Karat called a Benoit term. So you fly a combat mission in North Vietnam or Laos, sometimes Cambodia. And then we would land at Benoit, do rearm, refuel, and then fly another combat mission. But the first lieutenants many times would stay there for a couple of days and did what we call pulling mobile. So you sat at the end of the runway in a runway supervisory unit. You check landing gear. It's pretty boring. So I had a friend in the 8th Special Operations Squadron flying these airplanes. His name was Steve Graveroff. He was a classmate of mine in the academy. He asked me to go fly with. And, as a first lieutenant, you're just dumber than dirt. I said, sure, I don't get any credit for it, but I'll go fly with you. So I went and flew it, I think it was the 24th of July. He asked me to fly the afternoon mission with him, and I couldn't do it because I had to pull mobile. So I flew the morning mission, and he did a great job talking directly to the ground commander on Fox Mike and putting the bomb exactly, like Johnny said, exactly what the ground commanders wanted. And then we landed. I went to Mobile, went back to the 8th that afternoon, and found out on that afternoon mission he'd been shot down and killed, direct hit from a 37 millimeter. So providentially, I guess like you said, I didn't fly that afternoon mission.
Yep, weren't supposed to.
Great guy.
And your experience similar in the A-37?
We took off in Benoit and didn't go very far east, and was already a predetermined target out there. We never saw the target because of all the foliage, but he knew where he was going to drop the bombs, and it was a pretty dry mission. We dropped all 4 of the 500-pounders on the aircraft and then came back home.
Time to go to the club.
Yeah. That's what we do a lot.
Well, so in the Phantom, though, you guys were headed up north most of the time, weren't you?
Well, it was a multi-mission airframe. So, we did air-to-ground, dropping bombs. We did MCAP, where we lead the flights into North Vietnam, hopefully clear the skies of MiGs, and then the Stripers would come in after you. And we did escort. So we would escort the bombers outboard on the wingies, on the wingtips. So we did just about everything. We flew Laos, sometimes in Cambodia, and then North and South Vietnam. And the summer of 72 was involved primarily with what we call Linebacker 1. So those were missions over Hanoi. We're trying to get the North Vietnamese back to the negotiating table. And that lasted until, it started in April, lasted until October. And then Linebacker 2 began in December, again going back north, and we were escorting the B-52s. And the B-52s were the ones that were dropping the bombs. And our job was to keep the MiG away.
Yeah, well, you could keep the MiGs away from them, but you couldn't keep the SAMs away from them.
Could keep the SAMs away, and there were lots of SAMs. And we all thought the SAMs should begin shot at us, but they weren't shooting at us. They were shooting at B-52s. It's bigger target. Bigger target, and they were the ones that did damage. But there were a lot of SAMs, and a lot of them were night missions. And there's about 1,000 feet overcast, so when the SAM launched, you see this big bloom underneath the clouds, and then as it came through the clouds, it would go to a pinpoint of light. And then you'd look out and you see maybe 10 SAMs over there at one time, and you would convince every one of them to look at you.
Well, it gets personal.
It gets personal.
But, I mean, a SAM-2 is about the size of a telephone pole.
Yeah.
It's a huge missile.
It's going Mach 4. It's got wings that are about this big, so it can't turn. And once you get over the thrill of seeing one of these things fairly close, you realize as long as I can see it, I could outdo it. But you got to see it.
Well, the ones you don't see are the ones that get you.
Typically.
Well, and fortunately, neither of you, I don't think, were punch out of an airplane.
No.
That was always exciting. But as part of your preparations, what'd you take along with you? I mean, besides your lunch.
And the sorry.
Then the Stars and Stripes. Well, we get the typical mission we get in the morning. The OB-10's food during the day. We always had two OB-10s cover Cambodia in the morning, two in the afternoon. So they were flying daytime. Our rest of mission in Cambodia at night was flown by O2.
The mixed
Airshers. That's right, the Cessna. And they were armed with the smoke rockets, this 2.75-inch rockets. They also had flares that could light up the sky and so forth. And during the day, we carried not only our 2.75 rockets, we carried 4 pods of those normally, in addition to our 230-gallon tank on the center line. We also had 4 30-cal machine guns in the sponsons on the aircraft, so we had a little bit of firepower. So when we didn't get fighter support, we could go in and do the attack ourselves, unless it was too big.
Provide a little meaningful feedback.
That's right.
But again, you're in a roomier airplane, I would think.
It was pretty, for a two-seater, it was pretty roomy. The seat was up high. In fact, your seat was almost the level of the canopy rail. And then the canopy wrapped around you. It was nice visibility. And canopy wrapped around you to right about your hips. So you could almost look down. If you leaned over slightly, you look down and see below you. So it was a very good observation of the aircraft. But you asked what we carried. We carried a normal survival vest. I think you had the same thing. It was a web type apparatus that you wore, taped up before you went out to the aircraft. We carried a 38 caliber pistol, which I don't know why we did that. I don't know if that could protect us. But we had our survival radio. There's some other stuff in there, like probably some matches.
Yeah, I've got pictures of it here. I don't know if they can see it. But
Is that you? Was that
that's
young Ashby Taylor?
the 2,000-pound laser-guided bomb. So we had survival radios right here. We had a compass here. We had 38 caliber, like Johnny said. We carried extra bullets up here. And we had a little survival kit with the fishing line. A little hook about that big. I was not going to catch fish. And like Johnny said, I don't know. I know of a couple people who have used that 38 caliber. But most of the guys said, when I'm coming down in the parachute, I'm going to throw it away.
So
You're not going to survive.
young guys, obviously, you're out of the academy, you're out of college when you guys get trained over there. But what does a typical week look like for your young guys in a whole different country in the middle of war?
Well, let me start. Well, I tell you what, I'll give you a typical North Vietnam mission. So you would, the big thing for me was, as a brand new guy, is learning from all of these guys who are on their second combat tour. And they were good. And I didn't know anything. So my focus was, I just don't want to screw up. I want to be in formation. I want to be able to get on the tanker and not have to go home because I can't get fuel. And by the way, we refuel so much after about a week or two. It's one of those things like riding a bicycle. You never forget. I feel like I go up and need fuel today. Then we go into this place called Fort Apache when you're getting ready for a mission. And that's where you got dressed. And so the first thing you did was remove all your patches. You had to be sanitized to fly. The only thing we carried was a Geneva Convention card and an ID card. No picture, none of that kind of stuff. And then G-suit, survival vest, harness, test your oxygen mask. We had a guy named Gale Atwood who would always change into a camouflaged flight suit. So he would go into a closet, change into his flight suit, and as soon as he came out, somebody would always look right at Gale and say, "Hey, anybody see Gale? We see him just 10 minutes."
Empty passageway.
And then you had to load your gun in a a big barrel that had sand in it, but they were afraid we were going to shoot.
Sure, so sand.
Yeah. And then you got in a van. You went to the airplane. This is all after you briefed, of course. And at Karat, we had 2 F-4 squadrons, 2 F-105 squadrons, and a B-66 squadron. And when you went on one of these heavies, which we call the linebackers, there'd be 100 airplanes out there. And you're all taxiing out together. And I tell you, as a brand new lieutenant, your eyes are that big, and the same thing, you just do what they briefed. Try not to screw.
That's the junior officer prayer.
That's a junior officer.
Please, God, don't let me.
Don't let me move up. Yeah.
Well, Scott, you asked about what felt like being a young pilot over there. We back up a little bit because my story starts many years earlier. I guess some of my first memories around 4 or 5 years old, living in Sherman, Texas. And my dad, after war, we came back from the South Pacific. He wasn't a pilot, he was a maintenance guy, and he bought an aircraft and got his private license when he got back. So I was actually flying with him and Mom in a Taylor craft aircraft before I could even walk. I was told stories about when we flew across Texas, we went to see our grandparents. I'd saw those shiny dials and switches, and I'd reach over and flip a switch and turn the magnetometers off, and the airplane perfect found the red flag. So that was before my memory, and my mother told me about that. Anyway, we were living in Sherman, and my whole world was that little plow of land in front and backyard. In the backyard, I had a Taylor craft fuselage sitting there. So during the days, that's where I would play in that aircraft. And so I thought I'd want to be a pilot. Or in the front yard, I had the world out there. We had a garbage truck go by every day, and it was huge. That was kind of cool too. Maybe it could be a garbage truck driver and say, "Oh, that's a big thing." About to say. Or there was another truck went by every day. I'm showing my age here, but it was a ice delivery man. They would deliver big blocks of ice on their shoulders with a big leathers on the back that put the ice on and take it to houses that didn't have refrigerators. They had ice boxes. So I was going to be an ice box or ice delivery man or garbage truck driver or a pilot. Well, fortunately, I turned out to be a pilot. And so I went to A&M. I crammed 4 years into 5 at Texas A&M, hoping the war maybe I could still get into it, and I did. Got married and commissioned the same day I graduated from Texas A&M. Got married, so we joined the Air Force and see the world, and they sent me to Del Rio, Texas. My first assignment in pilot training. So out of that, I went to Vietnam, came back, and they sent me back to Del Rio, again for 3 or 4 years to teach. And when the bird was released, the chief area.
So having your whole world being in Texas for your whole life, what was it like? Didn't you show up to Vietnam? Or what was it?
It was not over. Yeah, I first went over there, and we stopped at Clark to go through jungle survival. We called it Snake School. That was a very interesting school where the Gritos, the indigenous people of the Philippines, actually taught us, along with the Air Force instructors, of how to escape and evade and hide and so forth. Very interesting school. But over there, I saw people I'd known back in the early pilot training. I said, "This is kind of cool. You're on the other side of the world, and you're seeing people you already know."
Yeah.
That kind of struck me. Yeah. We would go to the club at night while I was still at Clark and have dinner and have the 40s big orchestra of 1940s music being played. And the orchestra leader was actually probably in his 70s or 80s at that time. And he was actually had performed for MacArthur during when he was in the Philippines. So I thought that was very cool. And walk across the street from the club, there's a big polo ground. I thought I was back in another world. It was kind of exciting.
Yeah. Talking about Snake Stool.
Yeah.
The thing that impressed me more than anything is that first night in the jungle.
Yeah.
You're spending the night in your parachute. Yeah. And the noises, monkeys, the birds, and you look out there and you see phosphorescence, and you thought they were eyes looking at you. It was a.
I remember we was talking about nighttime. They gave us 3 panels of a parachute to build a small pup tent where you sleep in that night. And so I got my tent built, and I found this level piece of ground in the jungle. I thought I'd be pretty comfortable there, and I fell asleep. But I woke up in the middle of the night by a little patter of feet going by the tent. and come find out the rats running up and down this clear area that I found in the jungle. That was their highway.
Fly was clear. Who's this guy building the roadblock?
And our Asian were it's the Negritos. These guys in the Negritos were in their loincloths and the bows and arrows. That's how primitive they were. But they were out there looking for us, and we try to hide and hide from them. And he carried around, I think it was 3 dog tags called chits. And if they found you, you gave them one of those, and they cashed it in for a bag of rice. Well, the day I hid, I found a little bamboo thicket, and I guess I started crawling back under this bamboo. The decayed bamboo was laying on the ground, crawling back in, trying to cover my trail up. I went back about 40 yards into this place, and I fell asleep. And I woke up when they started blowing the whistles for after the exercise is over with. I never was caught that day. I was so proud of the fact that none of my guys.
They found me both times.
That's a study. That's something. That is when you decide you need to be a better
Oh, yeah, I mean, they both found me. Yeah, no kid.
To evade a Negrito in his home turf is an achievement, especially for a Texas boy.
That's right.
Not like
So how long you guys were you guys over there?
I was there 1 year, almost
Me too. I was fortunate enough to get over there. I went to snake school over New Year's. So I left home after Christmas of 1 year of 70. Went to survival training in the Philippines. So it was right after the first year when I got over in the country. And I was able to leave right before Christmas of that year. So I really never spent Christmas over there.
So
Will you marry?
I was, yeah.
you guys both had a year. So how many sorties?
I got right here my 4 and 5. I've had 164 sorties, combat sorties, and 463 combat items.
I don't know how many stories I had. I wish I'd taken notes, detailed notes of what I did on each story and what target I hit that day. But I had around 700, 800 hours of flight time in the Norwegian. Most of that was combat. Each mission was about, I remember right around 4 hours. I'd go as long, maybe as long as 5. Sometimes I'd be stretched to.
So did you ever fly twice in one day? 2 missions in one day?
No.
Yeah, that'd be around the
Well, a 4-hour flight, and you're over there 100 degrees, high humidity, even as a first lieutenant, it kind of wore you out.
Yeah.
And I want to say something about the backseaters because they deserve some recognition. When Nixon sent us in there in June of 1970, before I got there, a few months before I got there, this rustic unit was put together pretty fast to go help the Cambodians. And they're put together so fast that they needed some backseaters that spoke French, because it used to be a French protectorate from 1862, I think. Well, the Cambodians would speak Cambodian or French, but very little English. So we had these French interiors sitting in our back seats. There was cabins from all over the U.S. forces in Vietnam. If there's something on your record saying you spoke French, they pulled you into an office to see if you actually speak French. And if you passed the test, they would say, "We've got a mission for you. What would you think about coming and flying a special mission? You can't tell you what it is. It's going to be dangerous and be involved in a flight." Not a single one refused the mission. We had guys from mail rooms, from refueling specialists, from aircraft mechanics. And these guys started flying for the first time in their life, flying combat.
And combat.
And I've heard stories from some of the backseaters that I still talk to. After they got back home and started their other assignments back in the States, they would be wearing air medals and DFCs, Distinguished Flying Crosses. And they were challenged many times. How in the hell did you get that?
Yeah. So what was their main purpose?
Their main purpose was sitting in the back seat, talking to the ground commanders who did not speak English, and they became very helpful during an airstrike. I was up front trying to maneuver the aircraft. They were coordinating it. They were coordinating attack and feeding the information to me.
That's something that you didn't have to learn. That because he said they came out of mail.
That's right. I mean, they never went back to the States for training. They trained right there. So they would be telling me what the ground commanders done. As the fighters came in, I'd basically an air traffic controller at sometimes of trying to stack the fighters so they didn't run into each other and bring the fighters in and strike and putting the smoke down so they could see the target. By the way, we were talking on several different radios. We're about our hip levels. Without looking at, we learned how to run these radios. I think 2 FM mics, box mics, UHF. There were about 4 or 5 radios, and each one was different dial. Turn one on, turn one off. So you were talking to the ground commander sometimes yourself, talking to fighters, maybe talking to the second set of fighters.
Were you having to switch between the radios or something? Yeah. So you're missing stuff.
I'll be flying with one hand and reaching down and changing channels at the same time. I just thought about it there. I just thought about, well, I talked about the canopy on the OV-10. We come back from mission. Sometimes it was difficult to see outside that canopy because in our pockets, we had not only a pen and pencil, but we had a grease pencil.
Yep.
And we would start putting down the target information so I could brief it to the fighters when they arrived on station. And then when they struck the target, I would go down, take a look at what the damage was, and start writing the report back to them so I could give them a debrief before they left the target area and went back home.
So what you're saying is all those notes you wish you would have written are all sick. I heard you can't be somewhere.
Well, they're wiped out by the crew chief.
The crew wonder you didn't want to sit down and write afterward.
They're done right. And the crew chief at night would have to scrub all this stuff off.
Start Friday.
Start first next day.
And I should mention, since Johnny's talking about the guy in the back seat, their Corps was a 2C.
Yeah.
So the back seat was called a weapons system officer. He operated the fire control system, the radar, and just about anybody that you talk to, that guy was really invaluable. And when you look at Steve Ritchie, who was our ace, shooting down 5 MiG-21s, every single time at back seat and they'd gotten a lock on to tell Ritchie exactly where this airplane was, azimuth, range. So those guys did a great job in the back seat. And if you got hit, they were on the ground with you.
Yep.
So it was I need to mention those guys because they're very important to the mission.
There are few things tighter than a combat crew.
Yeah.
Whether pickup or not. And I had no idea about the Frex stickers.
Yeah.
You never took cubby riders with you? That was a MACB SOG thing. That
Cubby was another part of the Ford air controllers.
Yeah.
We're Cubbies, Sundogs, a bunch of different calls.
Yes.
Nail.
We're up on the trail. But the rustics were the only ones in Cambodia. We, as I said, we started in June of 1970, and we lasted until 73, so it was a very short amount of time.
Well, what kind of targets were you putting these guys in on? Because I went there several times, and it was mostly just wooden bridges and stuff like that. I mean, it wasn't the kind of...
It wasn't easy. We weren't going against large anti-aircraft weapons like you did. I guess our largest we were going against was basically they were 50 cals. Although we call them 51 cals, they were basically 50 cals. And
it's a fearsome weapon.
Yeah.
I can remember rolling in some targets when I didn't have any fighters nearby, and I knew the guys were down there. In fact, I could see the motorized sampans going across, trying to get across the river. And I'd roll in myself and try to hit them. And although I couldn't see the guys too well because of the foliage, I could see these tracers coming up at me, going both sides of my cockpit. And I've always wondered before I got over there, I would really act in time of being shot at, whether I be scared or brave like John Wayne was in the movies I grew up on. Like I had a very strange feeling on the first time I saw those tracers coming at me. And it wasn't anything of scaredness, I don't think. It was, oh shit, they're shooting at me. I'm going to get them. And you know, I got anger a little bit. A little bit of anger.
How dare you?
Yep.
So how many times do you have to put the airplane down and then walk around the plane and count holes?
I never counted a hole. Never
Never had a hole. All that.
I came back with maybe over G, and I had to explain it to a crew chief.
I was going to say, your crew chief must have loved you.
Yeah, man. Talking about over G, I remember one mission. Well, actually, sometimes we we were rewarded for flying so many days by, hey, take this mission to Cambodia, fly your normal 3.5, 4-hour mission. And once you go into Thailand, recover Karat or Ubon, and stay the night and have a good time and come back. We get rearmed in Ubon and fly a mission on the way back, then recover back home at Benoit. Well, I did one of those. I did several of those, but I came back from Thailand one day, a flying mission, and the other guys had been over to Thailand before me, and they'd gone downtown and started ordering a bunch of stuff that could be picked up later. Things like party suits, jewelry for their girlfriends, these porcelain elephants called Saigon elephants, and we'd put them in the back of the OV-10 and bring them back to the guys who ordered them. But we had to fly that mission with all this stuff in the back end. So I remember one mission I got out of Thailand, I got into Cambodia, got on station, immediately we had our troops in contact. So I rolled in to do some airstrikes, and I forgot that not only did I have all that weight in the back end, but I had a full load of fuel. I was early in the mission. So as I was coming in on the target and trying to fire my guns, I couldn't hit anything that day, and I got target fixation. Whoa. And I kept firing in front of my backseater says, "Sir, pull! Sir, pull!" And I looked around, all of a sudden, I could see leaves on the tree. That's how low I was. I started pulling, and the aircraft started mushing into the trees. And again, second lieutenant survived, and I pulled out in time. And
The airplane was a little stressed.
that's when I came back a little bit overstressed. Some of the fairings on the wings were slightly out of place.
Well, it's the fault of all your buddies who ordered all that junk you.
That's right.
That's not your fault.
So Ashby being the fighter pilot, how many air-to-air type missions you had? I mean, do you have anything that sticks out of the dogfighting?
Just one mission that I was a wingman on, and my leader shot down a MiG-21, and that was at night.
Okay.
And he was locked onto this MiG-21 for 10 minutes, and we had to get within range. We were in a tail chase. So every time he would turn, we'd cut him off, cut him off, shot an AIM-7. We had a technique back then. It was classified back then. I'm sure it's not still, but it was called combat tree. So you could actually interrogate their transponders.
Oh, wow.
So, and then Steve Ritchie only flew the D models because he always had combat tree. And even though you didn't have a skin paint, you could just shoot. You could see them coming down, and then when they got close enough, you better lock on and shoot. So one shoot down with the MiG-21, I was just a wingman, checking 6.
Yes.
The most interesting mission I had was over a place called Bat Lake in southern North Vietnam. There were a lot of surface-to-air missiles down there that had been shooting at RP-52s, and they were surrounded by 37 and 23 millimeter guns that were protecting. And it was about 3:30 in the morning. We had a fast-forward air control, an F-4, a Tiger, they called it Tiger Fat. He had found these guns. He dropped flares so we could see, and our job was to take these guns out. And I've never liked that mission, because all you're doing is having a gunfight with 23 millimeter and 37 millimeter. You got a 20 millimeter gun and drop your bombs. So we had a flight of 3. I was a flight lead, and so we started dropping bombs on these guys. The lights are off. It's dark. And we had what we call 9-level gunners. So you roll in, and you can see the target underneath the flares. And these gunners, for some, I don't know how they do it, but they could tell exactly where we were just from the sound of the airplanes. And not tell you, that was the worst time that I've ever had in combat as far as AAA. I mean, it was covering the canopy. It would light the cockpit up, and but we knocked out of this.
So Johnny has an angry feeling, and that's happening to him. What do you feel?
I wasn't angry. I don't think I had an angry feeling. It was just they're there. There's nothing you can do about it. I did want to put the bombs on target. That was the focus. And so when the AAA is coming by and you're on your dive bomb pass, you're not maneuvering. You're trying, because we were bombing direct. We didn't have GPS and all this kind of nonsense. So we had to meet certain parameters to get the bombs on target.
Well, you were flight lead, and so you're responsible for 3 other aircraft, responsible for the success of the mission. And that's one of the things that helped you kind of subsume any personal feelings. You're focused on the job.
It's always the mission and your training. I mean, if you, for some reason, I never felt scared. You're just, it's a level of excitement. And you want to make sure that you're doing the mission and you're not doing something that your flight leader is going to not like.
You've been through so much training, it's just kind of like,
Yeah.
Just remember.
Yeah. Well, a famous quote by Winston Churchill, there are few things more exhilarating than being shot at without result.
Yeah, that's right.
So you get a year, both of you have a year, you guys go through it all, you get done with that. What is life like? Out of Vietnam, yeah, but what is it
When I came home,
feel different for you?
well, that's a good question. I went to be an instructor at George Air Force Base. I wasn't married, so pretty much just chasing losing.
I know town right there, George. You're
Totally.
Atlanta,
Yeah.
Apple Valley, but yeah.
Yeah, but we loved Apple Valley. But it was mostly just, chasing girls and, being a young fighter pilot that's not married. So it was a little bit of a letdown because all I'd known was combat at this point. And there's all these rules. You come back to all these rules, and I just couldn't learn them all. I probably broke a million rules that first year, over-G'ing airplanes and doing things that weren't a big deal in combat, but in peacetime. And I remember flying with a guy one time, and he said, Ashby, I want you to understand something. It's not combat anymore. This is the peacetime Air Force. So pay attention to the rule. Don't break the rules. And I learned from that.
And that's a very common thread
Yeah.
among people who've been in combat. It's like Matt McCauley talked about the fighting Navy and the other Navy.
Mm-hmm.
And there's less of the chicken stuff
Yeah.
in
That.
in a combat environment, and some guys just never do.
They never make it back. They never make it back. Mentally, they never.
Yeah,
that is not bad.
and
those guys would make major, and then they would not get promoted to Dale.
Well, as you know, because you say you don't feel it when you're getting shot at like that. Like it's just a job, but your body feels it. You have that adrenaline dump all the time, but you get used to it. And then when you don't have that anymore, that's got to feel like a pull, like you said, a letdown.
I think flying fighters is good enough. I mean, I would be out there and can't remember the name of the valley up north of George up in there, but we'd be dog fighting, and you're focused on this other guy, and you're fighting, and of course you're at hangars of attack, and all you're doing is sinking. And you look, all of a sudden you see the mountain ridges rising up around it. This is the Pyramid Valley just next to the
Okay.
and that's pretty
exciting enough.
Yeah, so the flying a fighter in training is actually more exciting than flying in combat, because in combat, sometimes it gets pretty dull and doing the same thing over and over and over. But in training, we were dropping bombs at night on training ranges and under flares and doing all kinds of stuff.
So your question reminds me of coming back. Like I said, I came back to Drury, Texas, and taught in the T-37 for several years. An interesting observation when I got back and started teaching was, when I was in Vietnam, I knew those guys were trying to kill me. Now I've got students that I feel safe, and they're trying to kill you. Yeah. And
But they don't mean it, John.
No. You're still just a skill. But coming back from Vietnam, coming back in the cattle cars, DC, wherever areas, the big stretches, but called cattle cars. And I remember my flight back, we came into Los Angeles to land there before I went on to Dallas. Over in Vietnam, if you saw a truck moving on a road, that was excitement. That was called a mover. And your adrenaline went up and you went in to do a strike on it. I got to Los Angeles and we came over, getting ready to land at LA, and all these movers on the freeway, blah, blah. That was so much excitement to see movers. That's when it back to stage.
I don't say it anymore. We're not doing this anymore. You don't get to shoot it down.
Yep.
Gentlemen, you have provided an awful lot.
We made it all up.
Well, yeah. I didn't say it was true. I said you provided a lot of really interesting stuff.
Well, just remember that this World War II museum we've got here, those guys were flying over with the same freedoms we had.
Well, which is why I wanted to talk to you guys, since I can't talk to them.
Yeah,
Anymore.
when like the interview that you had with Charlie, he talked about, because he was later, that he had 10 years of training before he ever got in combat experience. You guys are still on that cusp, so
Brand new.
hey, we're going to get our training, and they're throwing you right into it.
Well, you knew at the time you went in that you were going for war. And a lot of guys later, 10 years in, it's like, what do you mean we're going to war? You knew it. You knew it from the day you took the oath on the academy, that was in your future. And there's a lot to be said for that, as there would be for these World War II folks. I say the same thing about my younger son, who enlisted after 9/11, knowing he was going to war. I enlisted to dodge the draft. So it's a different thing, and I want to thank you both. I worked with both of you guys for 5 and some years, and didn't know a fraction of this. And I really appreciate you taking the time to.
You ever got any party boss? Anything like that?
I just say my 21 years in the Air Force was my best 21 years. There were bad times, I'm sure, but I've forgotten them all. The Air Force was a great way to start a career, a flying career. It was this stuff. It was great.
I agree. It's amazing that they put such a machinery in our hands at 24 years old, 23 years old, and to let them go out and do it. You have very little rules. We had rules, but it basically just a second sentence out there. Without learning while we're doing it.
Earn while you learn.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, guys.
Thank you all. Sure appreciate it. You enjoyed it.
Thank you. I'm really happy with this episode, Scott. We got exactly what I wanted. These two gentlemen were gracious enough to tell us, and a lot of it was you drawing them out, what it's like to be 23 or 24 years old, strap on an airplane, and go into combat where people are trying to kill you and you're trying to kill them.
Well, and that's something that, 98% of the population will never experience.
Yeah, at least.
Maybe even more, especially these days, you don't really have any of that,
No.
there is some, I'm sure, but it's a much more disconnected way to fight, I think.
Well, it has been. In World War II, 9% of the population wore the uniform. And that's why I started the podcast with the call to colors.
Mm-hmm.
16 million people responded to the colors. Johnny and Ashby, in their turn, did. But yeah, there are fewer and fewer. We have young guys here who've flown combat in the current or recent unpleasantness. But Vietnam was as close to World War II air combat as I hope we're likely to see.
Yeah.
Just like you say, I was talking to him about, having that very short training period.
Yeah.
And then being thrust into it. You're not seeing that as much anymore, I don't think. These systems, and they're flying computers, and there's so much that they got to learn before they can go out and actually put it into use, I would assume. Somebody that's never done it.
Well, these guys were well trained. They were prepared to go, but there's a watershed, which some of us never see, between, no kidding, real combat and training.
Yeah.
You can train and you can train. Charlie alluded to that, 10 years and then go to combat. And part of that is we try to be unfair about it now.
Well, that's the way it should. We want to win.
Exactly. Never. If you're in a fair fight, your planning sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the other guy's he's not going to fight a fight fair.
No.
So anyway, yeah, that was a fantastic sit down. It was really great to sit with those guys. And like you said, they're around here all the time, but you don't always get the chance to just sit down and just have those conversations and find out those stories. I didn't know. I mean, I came into this cold. I didn't know any of their story at all. I barely even knew that Ashby doesn't even look like he's old enough to fly in Vietnam. Johnny, okay, I can see that. But so to sit down and hear their stories, and they're similar, but they're different. They definitely had different aspects to it. So to be able to hear that is a treat.
Well, what I've found is people who have really been to combat are very reticent about talking about it. It's a measure of trust and acceptance for them to be willing to do this.
Yeah, son.
The loudmouth down at the VFW never got there.
Yeah.
And 5 years I've known these guys, and I learned a lot of new stuff.
Well, thanks for bringing them to the table.
Well, no, I appreciate that. So we got more cool stuff coming.
Yeah, we got our September fly days on September 13th, and that's the PBY, the Black Cats, with Ian Wayman flying, and still haven't figured out who the co-pilot's going to be, but that'll come down the pipe for sure. And then, September, the exciting news that we just broke on the last podcast, that we're going to be doing the docu-series at the museum. So we're talking 10 straight days of flying. We're going to be using the B-25 as a photo ship. So the B-25 will be flying every single day, which is going to be very busy for me.
Yeah.
And then whatever airplanes we got scheduled, whoever we got for pilots that day, that we're going to be able to go up and fly almost the entire collection. So that'd be a great time to come out to the museum. Price of admission. You want to talk about a living museum. This museum's going to be alive for those 10 days.
That's going to be,
and then I'll be dead after.
Splendid to see.
But that's going to be, we're super excited about it. So
we'll get some episodes in the can before you go off to your deserved rest, because I'm sure if the B-25's flying, you're in the right seat.
Yeah. So if you're enjoying these podcasts, go to worldwariiaviation.org. And you can see all of our links for any of our social media, any of the future events coming up on the museum. You can see us on YouTube. Right now, actually on YouTube, we have the SB2C presentation and the more in-depth sit-down with Matt Cawley and Jeff Hummel on the recovery of the Helldiver. And those are very, very popular videos right now. They're probably our most popular videos that we've been able to put up. So
yeah, they're good.
Really, if you haven't seen it, go watch those. And that's all I got.
I'd say that's enough.
So
thank you.
Thank you to Johnny Drury and Ashby Taylor and my partner Rob Gale, our producer William Stephenson, and myself. Thanks for watching another episode. Stay safe out there.